0.25-mile run. Why do some people look so cute when they run? I mean, I've got my...
Move, bitch! Get out of my fucking way! It's Black History Month!
Alright, so like I told you before, today's episode was specifically about the editor and creative collaboration of the inventors of Ebony and Jet magazine. His name was actually John H. Johnson. He was born January the 19th of 1918. He was born in Arkansas. And, he, of course, died August the 8th of 2005. So he was a total of 87 years old in Chicago, Illinois. Let's go from where he started and what he basically went to. So, like I stated before, he was actually born to a mother and father by the name of Gertrude and Leroy Jenkins, okay? They both were together, and unfortunately, by the time that Mr. Johnson was 6, his father actually died in a sawmill accident, and Johnson was just only raised by his mother and stepfather. Okay, Johnson attended an overcrowded, segregated elementary school, which that is where his love of education and research actually came from. He loved learning so much he repeated the 8th grade rather than discontinuing his education, as there were no African American high schools in Arkansas City. So what they ended up doing is their mother took a visit to Chicago's World Fair, and then decided that there was more opportunity in the North than the South, okay? Facing poverty and everything on the South side of Arkansas during the Great Depression was definitely not the move. So what they ended up doing is they moved to Chicago, Illinois in 1933 to try and find work and to continue Mr. Johnson's education. Johnson ended up entering an all-black school, Wendell Phillips High School, in 1933, while his mother and stepfather would go and look for work. Of course, they were unsuccessful, and he was also as helpful as well, because he went to look for work for after school and or during the summertime. Again, they weren't successful, but it's okay. They eventually made it through because they applied for welfare, and it kind of sort of helped them out over the 2 years that they were there. Eventually, Johnson's stepfather finally was able to obtain work with the WPA, which is Works Progress Administration. And then Johnson himself ended up finding a job as well with the National Youth Administration. John was teased a lot in school because of his raggedy clothes and his country ways, and he never really knew that middle class blacks actually was something that was a thing. What ended up happening is his classmates at DuSable High School, and I'm probably saying that wrong, I feel like I am, and it's okay. When he went there for his junior and his senior year, his classmates would include, but not limited to, Nat King Cole, Red Fox, and future entrepreneur William Abernathy. I had to make sure. I had to look at the name like, what? This was only fuel for him to basically be determined to make something of himself, because Johnson's high school career was distinguished by the leadership qualities he demonstrated as student council president and as editor of the school newspaper and class yearbook. He attended the high school during the day and studied self-improvement books at night. Okay, after he graduated with honors in 1936, he was offered a tuition scholarship to the University of Chicago, but he thought that he would have to decline it because he knew that he had no way to pay for other expenses outside of tuition. So because of his achievements in high school, Johnson was invited to speak at a dinner that was held by the Urban League when Harry Prince was the president, and president of the Supreme Life Insurance Company heard Johnson's speech, and he was definitely impressed by this man. What he ended up doing is he offered Johnson a job so that he would be able to use the scholarship to the University of Chicago. Johnson began as a office boy at the Supreme Life. Within 2 years, had became Peace's assistant. His introduction, preparing a monthly digest of newspaper articles with helping him from the publisher, Madame Du Bois. Johnson began to wonder if other people in the community might not enjoy the same type of service. He convinced of the publication to do a pattern of Reader's Digest, which he initially called it something else. Now, the Reader's Digest was something of the white culture, so of course we had to do anything to make it our own. Mr. Johnson actually came up with the idea to have it be called the Negro's Digest, which occurred to him. It began to seem like a black gold mine. Johnson stated that in his autobiography, Succeeding Against the Odds, he remained enthusiastic even though he was discouraged on all sides from doing so. Only his mother, a woman from the biblical faith, and basically she was super duper religious as fuck, but she also believed in her son. So to support his vision, she allowed him to use her furniture as collateral for a $500 loan, and he used that to basically publish his first edition of Negro's Digest in 1942. Johnson had a problem with distribution until he teamed up with someone by the name of Joseph Lowry, a magazine distributor who was impressed by him. Okay? Levy provided the valuable marketing tips and opening the doors that allowed the new digest to reach newsstands in other urban centers. Within 6 months, circulation had reached 50,000 people. This publication covered African American history, literature, art, culture, and issues. After several decades of publication, its name was changed to Black World. Now, although the Negro's Digest was a success and its height and everything, it just became more of a from 50,000 people or readers and subscribers to 100,000 people were actually getting into this Negro's Digest. Now, basically, it was doored by Johnson's publication, EBONY, which was so popular that its initial run of 25,000 copies easily sold out. Okay? The articles in EBONY, which were designed to look like those in Life or Look magazine, emphasized the actual achievements of successful African Americans. Photo essays were current events and articles about race, relations, anything that involved basically our culture. Which again, that's what kind of sort of made me excited about EBONY. So this magazine was okay. So basically, Johnson expanded the reporting to include issues such as the white problem in America. Okay, something that is not new today, but it was heavily publicated by his magazine back then. So, Professional historians were recruited for the magazine staff so that the contribution of African Americans to be the history of the United States could be acquitted and documented by us. Oh, kind of like FUBU, for us by us. African American models were used in these magazines' advertisement with the efforts to portray positive aspects of African American culture, life, and the things that we do on an everyday basis. Everything in the magazines was to address African American consumers. Johnson maintained that Ebony's success and basically he was due to have this positive image of the African American offered in an everyday magazine. In about 1951, Johnson launched Tan, a true confession type of magazine. In 1951, Jet, a weekly news digest, began. Later publications include African American Stars, and then he included Ebony Jr., a children's magazine. Although all the magazines achieved a measurable success, none were able to compete with Ebony, which its 40th year of publication had an amount beyond fucking numbers, okay? This is a lot. And basically Johnson was considered one of the 400 richest individuals in the United States. As an African American back then, that was something that you couldn't buy, okay? That was a big thing. So, one of Johnson's most notable issues of Jet was September the 15th, 1955. This issue in which he published a picture of Chicago's youth, Emmett Till, mutilated body after it had arrived in the Chicago from the Mississippi River. People considered Johnson's discussion to this publication, Till's photograph, his greatest moments. Michigan's Congressman Charles Dickens recalled that given the emotional images stimulated, it was probably one of the greatest media productions in the 40 or 50 years that he's ever had. Now, of course, Mr. Johnson, he went on to do other publications, which he owned Fashion Fair Cosmetic, which is the world's #1 makeup and skin care company for women of color, and Supreme Beauty Products, which is hair care for women and men of color. He also was involved in television production and produced a Ebony Fashion Fair, the world's largest traveling fashion show, which has donated over $47 million in charity. The show visited more than 200 cities in the United States. They also did Canada, Caribbean, and so much more. Johnson's publication also has a book division, which employs more than 2,600 people with sales over 388 million. Johnson actually purchased a radio station, started a book publishing company and a television production company, and served on the board as directors of several businesses, including the Greyhound company that we know and sometimes travel today. In 2019, the remaining assets of Johnson's published company were sold as a part of a Chapter 7 bankruptcy proceeding, which that's definitely not good. I wish that was one of any pieces of property of this man. I feel like should be a monumental situation where it doesn't get touched, period, by anybody. But you know how people do. No telling. But anyway, let's get back into Ebony, because Ebony was the main focus of this man, Mr. Johnson, his story. This Ebony magazine would be filled with cover to cover African-American public figures such as Dorothy Dandridge, Lena Horne, Diana Ross, Michael Jackson, former U.S. Senator Carol Mosley, Illinois' First Lady Michelle Obama, Beyonce, Tyrese Gibson, and Tyler Perry. So each year, Ebony selects the 100 most influential blacks in America. After 71 years, in June of 2016, Johnson's sold both Ebony and Jet to another Johnson's publication to a private equity firm called Clearview Group. This new publisher is known as Ebony's Media Corporation. After the publication went bankrupt in July of 2020, it was purchased for $14 million by Junior Bridge in December of 2020. Now, this person who actually purchased the rights to Ebony magazine, Ulysses Lee Jr., he was born September the 17th, 1953. He is also an American. You don't say he black. Okay. You don't say he black. You just say he American. That kind of scares me a little bit. Okay. So I'm just going to assume. Okay, so he was... I don't know. He's a basketball player from the information that I'm looking at right now. But he's a basketball player. And it looks like his people are basketball players. But mind you, I have no fucking picture of him. But we'll see. So, I know it was a lot of information. And I try to make it short and sweet as much as possible. But what I will say is this. I love my heritage. I don't care what nobody say and what nobody feel about it. Like, being black is fucking awesome. And then I always have to say it's going to be a beautiful day on the south side of GA. And before I actually sign off, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or you feel like that there is someone else that made some type of influential contribution to the African American culture, please do not hesitate to hit me up. Holla at me. You know what I'm saying? Slide in my DM and tell me I feel like you should do a episode on this person, and you should do an episode on this person. But let me know. I'm very open. I'm only doing the things that I feel like were, receptive of the African American culture. So if you don't know, and hopefully you will know, my name is Joe, and another day for another dollar.